All right, what's up? It's Real GM Radio. On today's show, I'm going to open with my thoughts on the entire Giannis situation, and then I'm going to go ahead and break down all the big trades that happened before the trade deadline. I'll tell you what I liked. I'll tell you what I didn't like. Let's jump in. All right, what's up, everybody? This is Real GM Radio, recording this a few hours after the 3 p.m. Eastern deadline ended. I'm going to get to my breakdown of a bunch of trades, but let's start with the trade that didn't happen. Giannis staying in Milwaukee, at least for now. There's a lot to get to here, but I did find it kind of annoying. The Bucks social media account trying to dunk on Shams and his reporting after a trade didn't happen, and then Giannis posting that meme from Wolf of Wall Street saying, "I'm not fucking leaving. Legends don't chase, they attract," as the caption. It's like, look, I understand the fan service part of this. I'm sure Bucks fans thought that was hilarious. Shams is, I don't know that he can ever step foot in Milwaukee at this point. And for a guy that I think he grew up in like the Chicago area, that's pretty close by, so that's not great for him. But yeah, Bucks fans, not Shams's biggest fans right now. And then Giannis coming out with that tweet and the video from Wolf of Wall Street after the deadline. Like, look, I get the fan service part. I'm sure Bucks fans loved it. I'm sure there's NBA fans around the league that thought that it was pretty funny. I found it annoying. I really did. That really rubbed me the wrong way. But both from the Milwaukee Bucks and from Giannis, frankly. It's annoying because don't pretend that this never happened, right? Like, for the Bucks social media account to come out and act like Shams was just making all of this up. And by the way, I don't know, like, it's not just every NBA insider was reporting on the Giannis situation, all of them. So if you think Shams was making it up, then I guess everybody was making it up this entire time, to the point where even some of the teams are the teams making it up? Are the agents making? Is everybody? Really, everybody's in cahoots to get Giannis to leave Milwaukee. I know that that's what some Bucks fans believe. It's not true. Whatever. I don't know. I find it fascinating. But the Giannis thing is what really bugged me, because this is a guy who has openly, on the record, many times gone back and forth and left the door open to potentially leaving. How many times has this guy said, if I can't win here, I'll look to win elsewhere? In so many words, right? Yes, he has also said, I'll never demand a trade and I would love to be in Milwaukee forever. But like 2 days before the deadline, he was saying, I would love to be in Milwaukee forever, but this team isn't good enough. And so for him, a couple minutes after the deadline passes and he's not traded, to come and do the "I'm not fucking leaving" video, and to say legends don't chase, they attract? What? What are we doing here? Don't do the whole fake news thing, man. Don't pretend like this never happened. So I found it annoying. And I find this entire situation annoying. Now, look, do I blame the Bucks for not trading Giannis? Do I blame Giannis for not demanding a trade? No, I don't blame anybody for that part specifically, okay? So I do want to bring some nuance to this, and I want to separate those two things. I don't blame the Bucks for leading people on. You already heard the reports and the complaining around the league. Oh, the Bucks were never really serious about trading Giannis. They were leading us on all along. Okay, fine. They don't owe you anything. John Horst and Bucks ownership don't owe it to any other team to be like to not lead you on, right? If they really did believe that Giannis could get traded, and if they do believe that they could still trade Giannis at the end of this coming summer, it behooves them to look at the market and control the market. Giannis is the first or second greatest player in Milwaukee Bucks history. I would personally put him first. You need to maximize the return on this. You get one shot at this, man. You get one shot at trading Giannis. And when you trade a superstar, the thing you need to get back is a lottery ticket to your next superstar. Whatever that is, a top draft pick, a blue chip young player. If you can get multiple lottery tickets, even better. And clearly, the Bucks did not feel like they were getting that lottery ticket back with the offers that they were getting up until 3 p.m. on Thursday. Now, what kind of offers were they getting, right? Golden State, the Golden State poo-poo platter of just random stuff never made sense to me, right? The Jimmy Butler, I've talked about this already, but first, the Jimmy Butler contract going over never made sense. You know, there were national people trying to position that as, oh, that's a tradable contract. No, it's not. $56 million next year? Yeah, sure, it's expiring. It's $56 million. That's a lot of money to move at the deadline. That's not easy. That's not a movable contract, especially when that contract is attached to Jimmy Butler and that entire, situation. And so then they pivot. Oh, we actually don't want to trade Jimmy Butler. Okay. Well, now we're open to trading Draymond and Jonathan Kuminga. Bucks say we don't want any of that stuff. We don't want Draymond. We don't want Kuminga. No thanks. Well, we got 4 first-round picks. Okay, cool. What else? Not good enough. You have 4 first-round picks. You're gonna have Steph and Giannis for those first 2 picks, and then you're gonna have Giannis after that. And those picks are so far out. We frankly don't care, and we're getting nothing back in the near term. That helps us in the near term. So yeah, I didn't blame them for moving on from the Golden State offer. I'll talk about what the Warriors did at the deadline here a little bit later. Then you get the Minnesota offer. I don't know what they ultimately ended up trying to propose to the Bucks. The thing I could never get past with the Timberwolves pulling something off before the trade deadline was, yes, you can move Julius Randle or Jaden McDaniels or Rudy Gobert or whatever it is that you need to move to go get the draft picks that you need to then send to Milwaukee. And maybe it's Jaden McDaniels and those picks, but you are gutting your roster. A roster that has been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. You're really going to do that? I do like what the Timberwolves ended up doing. I'll talk about them here in a second. You have the New York Knicks, who basically just said, nah, we're not interested. For what? Okay, that's a whole other thing. And then you have the Miami Heat, right? And this is obviously the team that I'm close to. They were offering Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Terry Rozier's expiring. They had 2 first-round picks that they could put in the deal. And then, maybe there was going to be a negotiation about what other young players, Jaime Jaquez, Kasparis Akachonis, whatever else, right? Obviously, the Bucks didn't look at that and say, yep, that's what we're looking for. Now, the reporting is that they considered it, but ultimately it wasn't good enough. Now, that either means that the Heat weren't able to get the draft compensation. There was some reporting that maybe Miami was trying to shop around other parts to try to get a pick in 2026 or 2027 that they could include for Giannis. So either that didn't happen, or the Bucks determined that they're not super, with Kuminga, that they're just not that interested in Khalil Ware, that they, maybe he's nice, but they don't view him as that blue chip prospect. So what do the Bucks expect to get? I think they're holding out for a top pick or a blue chip prospect. They made some minor moves here at the deadline. We'll see what happens for the rest of the season. There's already conversations about, well, are they going to try to shut Giannis down? I think Giannis will play. I just think it's going to be really hard to hold that guy off the court. And after this whole rah, I'm not fucking leaving thing, you're going to bench him down the stretch? No. Bucks fans are going to want to see Giannis. Good luck with that. Especially if there's still this concern that, hey, this might be the last season he's here. You're not shutting down Giannis. So that's not happening. And by the way, if you did shut down Giannis, that would be a big problem, I think, for the NBA. 3rd best player in the league getting shut down for the rest of the season, that's a problem. So I don't see that happening. So do the Bucks miss the play-in? What is this? What the playoffs? Perhaps they still can. That's not a good team with or without Giannis, right? They're not good enough. They could miss the playoffs. They could miss the play-in. Do they end up, moving up in the lottery? Something lucky happens there. Yeah, maybe. And then you go from there, right? Now, I don't think Giannis is particularly interested in playing with an 18, 19, 20-year-old, regardless of if it's Boozer or Peterson or anybody in this draft. As good as those players might be, I don't know that Giannis wants to play with a 19-year-old. You hear all these things that he's talking about in the media afterwards about, hey, I want mature players. I want players that know how to win. I miss Drew Holiday. I miss Chris Middleton, all this kind of stuff. I don't know that teaming up with a guy that just spent a few months in college is what Giannis is thinking about. And if you're the Bucks, do you then, if you miraculously move up in the lottery and end up getting one of these top 3 or 4 or 5 picks, are you really going to trade that for something? What are you trading that for that's of enough value that it turns you into a championship contender, keeps Giannis in Milwaukee long term, and you're not regretting it 4 or 5, 6 years later in a real way? I don't know what trade that is, right? Like, you hear, like, hey, they could trade the lottery pick. And maybe if it's like 9, 10, 11, but, we've seen this before. It's really hard to do that and not take the young player. Now, perhaps there's other things that they could do. Maybe they move Bobby Portis, Miles Turner in the summer. Maybe they try to redo the roster around him. Ultimately, I just think what happens here is that the Bucks say, hey, the offers that we got at the deadline aren't going to be materially worse in the summer, and we could potentially get a lot better offers in the summer. Do the Rockets or the Spurs try to get involved? They want a blue chip young prospect. The Rockets could offer an Alperen Şengün or maybe an Amen Thompson or a Jabari Smith Jr. or a combination of the Spurs. Would they ever offer like a Dylan Harper or something like that? I don't know. Doesn't sound like it right now, but things change. Oklahoma City, would they ever part with Jalen Williams or something like that? Would the Orlando Magic say, you know what, let's make Paolo Banchero available? Would the Cavaliers say, we got James Harden, we got Donovan Mitchell, maybe we move on from Evan Mobley and pair all those guys with Giannis. Bring LeBron back. Have the weirdest team ever. A lot of things can change. Maybe the Knicks get involved. A lot of things can change. So I understand where the Bucks are coming from. But I want to go back to Giannis here. Because Giannis had a lot of agency in all of this. First of all, we're not here if not for Giannis's actions, right? The Milwaukee Bucks never even wanted to take phone calls on Giannis. The only reason they were is because Giannis said and didn't say enough where they thought, oh, we could really lose this guy. So let's start making the phone calls. Let's start at least taking the phone calls and figuring out what the market looks like for this guy and get as much intel and information as possible so that we can make the best decision we possibly can make, because you can only trade Giannis once this summer. If Giannis really wanted to get traded, he could have put his thumb on the scale and gotten traded today. But he didn't want to do that. And I'm okay with that, for the record. The weird victory lap afterwards, annoying. Not getting traded, okay with that. But this doesn't go away. And I do wonder, look, we know what the Milwaukee Bucks are looking for, a lottery ticket for your next superstar. I'm not really sure what Giannis is looking for at this point. He says he wants to win, but at the same time, he's talking about how he doesn't want to leave Milwaukee. And obviously, if you could, those two things wouldn't be mutually exclusive, but right now they are. And I don't see the moves on the board this summer that makes it anything other than what it is right now. I still think the writing is on the wall. And if I had to bet, I still think Giannis is playing for a different team at the beginning of next season. And I don't think he signs the extension in Milwaukee. But what I do see happening here is this dragging out in the summer. This is not going to be a thing that gets done on draft night. This is not going to be a thing that gets done first day of free agency. This is not. He can sign the extension in October. I think it happens in October. I think this drags out because Giannis has shown time and time again that he doesn't really feel ready to get traded, or maybe more accurately, doesn't really feel ready to demand the trade, to do the thing, to say it out loud. What we all know that he actually probably wants deep down, he's too afraid to say it out loud because he's very concerned about his reputation. And he's talked about it, that how much the city of Milwaukee means to him, and it's on his passports and his kids' passports, and his dad is buried there. And I am very sympathetic to that. I think everybody would agree if the Bucks could still field a championship caliber roster, who wouldn't want to see Giannis end his career in Milwaukee? Everybody would want to see that. But the only reason we're talking about this is because you're talking about it, Giannis. Nobody is trying to get you to leave. The only reason we're talking about it is because you're talking about it. But what we can't figure out is what you actually want. Is it really deep down what you want to do is stay in Milwaukee, even if it costs you winning? You already won one championship. You're a Hall of Famer if you retire today. You could just ride it out in Milwaukee. But then you have, after these losses, these frustrating post-game comments. You are clearly frustrated. And I think there are times when Giannis, after these games, says, I'll do anything to get out of here. And I think there are times in between where he says, I love it here. I never want to leave. And I sympathize. I get it. It's hard. It's hard trying to make this decision, uproot your life, make this change is hard. And he's brought up the Kevin Durant thing, right? Or maybe he hasn't, but it was reported by Mark Stein that Giannis is looking at what Kevin Durant did when he went to the Warriors, for instance, and said, hey, when Kevin Durant teamed up with the 73-win Warriors with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, he never got the credit that Kevin Durant thought he deserved. And so you look at this social media post from Giannis to say, legends don't chase, they attract. You don't think that that's what he's thinking about? But here's the thing I think Giannis is really afraid of. It's not getting credit. I think it's what happened after Kevin Durant left Golden State to Brooklyn, to Phoenix, now in Houston. Kevin Durant is the greatest player in NBA history without a home. Who builds a statue for Kevin Durant? Who's retiring Kevin Durant's jersey? I think it's a fair question. You can make the argument that all of them should. You can make the argument that none of his teams should. Because he wasn't there long. He won 2 championships in Golden State. He wasn't there long enough. He never won anything in Oklahoma City, other than just his own MVP awards. Brooklyn, Houston, Phoenix, he accomplished nothing in these places so far. So Giannis, I think, is afraid of that. Leaving your market, your home, your city, the arena that you built. Afraid of leaving that and turning into the superstar nomad. And I get it. Nobody wants that. And so as much as this is a big deal for the Milwaukee Bucks to get this right, if and when they do trade Giannis, it's also really important for Giannis to get this right. Because his next team needs to be his forever team. But I'll tell you which way you could do this wrong is keep doing it this way. Keep talking about all this stuff publicly. Let this drag out all summer long. That's what you don't want to do. Because as much as Bucks fans love you now, they'll turn on you. We saw this with Dwight Howard. People do not like flip-floppers. Like, this is what happened to Dwight during the Dwightmare. I want to play for Orlando. I want to play for Orlando forever. I want to leave. I want to play. I want to leave. Then he signs the extension on the plane or the bus or something after a win. And then he ends up demanding the trade anyway. When you do this, you risk offending your own fans. You risk your own fans turning on you. Because nobody likes a flip-flopper and nobody likes to be dragged along here. So this summer, Giannis has to make a decision. Stay or go. And then really commit to it. Because if he doesn't do that, then that's how, for Giannis, the worst case scenario happens. RealGM Radio is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than on Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. On Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose Flex Play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the Power Play. No matter how you play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Find your community on Prize Picks. With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups that you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tailor fade our picks with just one click. Prize Picks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast and secure. Prize Picks accepts most major payment methods, making deposits into your account quick and easy this sports season. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is now available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, a bunch of moves here at the trade deadline that I want to get to. We're going to hit a bunch of these, so stay tuned. I want to start with what I think is one of the biggest ones, Anthony Davis to Washington. Full details of the trade. Wizards get Anthony Davis, Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, Dante Exum. The Wizards get Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, Malachi Branham, Marvin Bagley III. They get a 2026 first-round pick from Oklahoma City, and a top 20 first in 2030 via the Golden State Warriors. In terms of the picks that Dallas is getting here, these are not good picks, right? That 2026 first from OKC probably gonna end up being like 30th in the draft, something like that. And that Warriors top 20 pick, and first of all, it's all the way out in 2030, and it's top 20 protected. And if it doesn't convey, it turns into a second round pick in 2030. So these are not good picks, but they're there. The Mavericks have them. Whatever. You get Middleton, maybe he gets bought out. AJ Johnson, Malachi Branham, Marvin Bagley. Like, you're not really getting. I like Marvin Bagley. I kind of wish a contender traded for him because I think he can be helpful for the right rotation. But you're not really getting anything here if you're Dallas, other than out of the Anthony Davis business. And so let's recap. Let's do the thing, and we'll recap what Luka Doncic turned into. The Mavericks turned Luka Doncic into Max Christie, a 2029 Lakers first-round pick, the 30th pick in this coming draft from the Thunder, and a top 20 protected in 2030, a top 20 protected pick in 2030 that could end up just being a second-round pick. And you got 3 second-round picks. Wow. That is not on this front office. I want to make that very clear. I actually think the Mavericks did good work in this trade, despite everything I'm saying right now. I'll tell you why here in a second. But wow, Nico Harrison, this is not aging well for you, buddy. So in terms of the Dallas part of this, the value here is just getting out from Anthony Davis, increasing flexibility to build around Cooper Flag. That's it. You're out from Anthony Davis. The flexibility is what you're gaining here. And when you have a young player like Cooper Flag, that is really important, right? It's really important to be able to have the cap space, have the flexibility, the wiggle room to say, okay, what does this guy need as he's developing? Let's furnish him with the right kind of players, the right kind of talent, all this stuff. And frankly, Anthony Davis, by the way, very good player still when he's on the court, has a rough season. I feel bad for him. Still a good player. But he was in the way. He was in the way of Cooper Flag. So you get out from the Anthony Davis thing. You move on. You got this all-time get-out-of-jail-free card by moving up to number 1 in the lottery and getting Cooper Flag. Despite us being able to make fun of Nico Harrison and the Luka Doncic trade, that is a sunk cost. You bury it. You move on. You got Cooper Flag. You're going to be okay. Somehow this is going to work out for you. Right? That's where you are right now. You got the 3 first-round picks. You got Max Christie, who's a nice fit next to Cooper Flag. You'll figure this out. I know in Dallas they're talking about, okay, well, what's next? Do you trade Kyrie Irving? Not this deadline, but obviously this summer. Do you trade Kyrie Irving, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall? I would say no to all of it. Keep all of them. They're good players. Cooper Flag's good right now. Top 70 kind of player in the league minimum. I think it helps young players to be around good players. So I would keep those things. Now, if somebody comes knocking and says, hey, we're going to give you the Mikal Bridges or the Desmond Bane treatment for one of these guys, then you make that decision. But I'm not shopping those guys aggressively. I think those are good players that make sense next to Cooper Flag. In terms of Washington, this is maybe the more interesting part about this. So over the last few weeks, they've added now Trae Young and Anthony Davis. I'll start with the concern part of this, right? There are some people that are concerned that, okay, you've got Trae Young, you've got Anthony Davis. These are 2 very ball-dominant players that take up a lot of oxygen. And this is going to get in the way of the development of your young guys, the Keyshawn Georges and Bilal Coulibaly and Alex Sarr, right? Trey Johnson, all these guys. I've seen this take. I understand this take. I've seen it from people whose opinions and analysis I really respect. I think it's overstated. I think we're making too much out of it. There's going to be plenty of touches to go around. These guys aren't going to be on the court all 48 minutes, and they're not going to be on the court all 82 games either. We know that about Trae Young and Anthony Davis both. There's going to be plenty of touches for Alex Sarr. There's going to be plenty of time for Trey Johnson to experiment and all these things. And frankly, I do think there's something to be said about developing in a role and then growing into that role, starring in that role, and then expanding that role. You think of a guy like Kawhi Leonard, who was playing next to Manu and Tony Parker and Tim Duncan. Did that keep him from becoming a finals MVP? No. But he got on the court by being a good defender and hitting threes, and then he expanded his role from there. They added to his plate. I think there's something to be said about that. I actually think it's a good thing for your development, as opposed to just kind of running around all over the place with no real structure And when I watched the Wizards this year, that's what it felt like, man. It felt like you walk into a playground and this guy's on the jungle gym and this guy's going down the slide and nobody's doing anything together. It's just a bunch of young players kind of just doing stuff. And I like a lot of their young players. I think Sarr has become a really good player. I think Keyshawn George has the potential to be a really good player. And I think Keyshawn George, by the way, is the kind of player who fits in with Anthony Davis. He could fit in with pretty much anybody. But he makes a lot of sense now with Trae Young and Anthony Davis. I actually like this for Washington. The more I thought about it, the more I like it. After the Trae Young deal and now even after the Anthony Davis deal, you're adding vets that turn this murky collection of young players into something resembling a basketball team. And there is, like I said, value in that. Let's learn how to play basketball at an NBA level. And that's how you turn young players into good NBA players. So I like it. Now, I don't think that Trae Young or Anthony Davis are going to play very much for the Wizards for the rest of the season. They're going to get another good draft pick in this draft. You're going to add another good young player, and then you make a decision later. But all these guys are on rookie scale contracts. If anybody can afford to pay Trae Young and pay Anthony Davis their next contract, it's this Wizards team. And I think they'll be okay. I think these guys could be a benefit. For what Trae Young provides as a pick and roll operator, and yeah, you could tell me again that he's getting in the way in the development of the Wizards' young players. Let me ask you this. Do you really think any of these young Wizards players can be the primary ball handler on a contending team? I like Trey Johnson a lot. I don't know that that's his game. Anthony Davis, for all the stability that Trae Young gives you and the identity that Trae Young gives you on offense, Anthony Davis gives you that on defense. This guy, when he's on the court, is still an awesome defender. Very versatile, great rim protector. He's going to be able to be the backbone of a defense now. And what Anthony Davis can impart on Alex Sarr, I would be excited about that if I were a Wizards fan too. So I like it. I'm in. I think sometimes we overthink the Excel spreadsheet kind of cap table part of this, and we forget, okay, having good NBA players tends to be a good thing for your NBA basketball team, and it does tend to be a good thing for your young players so that they can learn from those guys. I'm into this. I kind of like what the Wizards build here. Are they a playoff team, all that? Like, that to me is actually not even important. They'll be better next year. They'll be more competitive. And I think this provides some gravity, right? It gives this young Wizards team an anchor, something to hold on to as they try to develop. So I like it. Let's talk about James Harden going to the Cavaliers. Harden to the Cavs. The Clippers get Garland and a second-round pick. I have my problems with how James Harden has handled this entire situation. That was my open earlier in the week, so you can go back and listen to that. This trade, though, makes Cleveland better now. And there is no debating that, right? Garland wasn't even playing for you. And what I like about the Harden thing, there are issues with the fit, right? There was issues with the fit with Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And they made it work. They won 60-plus games last year. Had one of the best offenses that we've seen. They made it work. And one of the ways that they made it work, right? We always talk about three-point shooting as being sort of the ultimate fix for weird fits. Like if you can shoot threes, then you get the spacing and then you can make the fits work. And that's true. But I think the other thing that we overlook there is drives, getting to the basket. That also tends to alleviate fit concerns. And that's how Garland and Donovan Mitchell got over the fit concerns last year. They had a great net rating together, right? Those two-man lineups and all those lineups that they were a part of, all huge positives. And a big reason for that was because Mitchell and Garland spammed getting to the rim. They were driving over and over and over again. And when you look at this Cavaliers offense, and a lot of people, what's wrong? It just doesn't feel the same. All this stuff, is it the injuries? Is it all this stuff? Yeah, probably some of the injuries have something to do with it. But you look at the amount of drives that they had last year versus the amount of drives that they have this year, and it is a very different number. Those drives have went way down this year. And that's why this offense doesn't have the bite that it had last year. Well, you add James Harden in the mix. This is one of the most prominent drivers in the league over the last 10 years. This guy's always near the top of the league in drives per game. He's going to drive to the basket. It's not a perfect fit between him and Donovan Mitchell, but I think they're going to make it work because we've seen this work before. And if you're going to repeat the formula from last year, I don't mind that for the Cavs. I don't mind that. Are you going to extend James Harden? What does this mean for their future? It sounds like all the reporting is that they are going to extend James Harden. I was joking with a Cavaliers friend of mine. We were texting earlier, and he was like, "How should I feel about James Harden?" And I said, "Well, after you trade Donovan Mitchell this summer, how do you feel about 38-year-old James Harden 2 years from now running pick and roll with young Evan Mobley? Because that feels like it's going to be your team. Maybe they end up there, maybe they don't. But they are in on the Harden business now, and if they do extend him, they're in it for a while. Is that enough to keep Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland? I don't know. They're clearly worried about it. No matter what they say publicly, you don't do this trade. You don't trade the 10-year younger guard who's a two-time All-Star in Garland, even with the injury concerns. You rarely trade that player for a guy like James Harden, who has his playoff hiccups, his age, the extension, his history. Make no mistake, this is a desperation move. Maybe the most desperate move we saw before the trade deadline in the entire league. But you do it because you want to keep Donovan Mitchell. And man, it reminds me a lot of LeBron's first tenure. This reminds me a lot of going and getting Larry Hughes and paying that guy. But we'll see how it works out. We'll see how it works out. Right now, I think they're a better team. I need to see it on the court before I make any sort of conclusions about, hey, can the Cavs win the Eastern Conference or whatever. I was talking to Danny Cunningham, who covers the Cavaliers for Locked On Cavs, and I said, what do they need to do? Like, what's the end result of this? That what do they need to accomplish in the postseason that helps them keep Donovan Mitchell this summer? And he said, basically, they got to make the finals. We'll see, right? If they make the Eastern Conference Finals and lose in 7 games, is that close enough? We'll see. A few other trades. Those are the big trades. Oh, no, one other big trade. Pacers. The Pacers, like half an hour before the deadline, they get Ivica Zubac. The Clippers get Benedict Mathurin and Isaiah Jackson, 2 first-round picks, and the protections on these picks are fascinating. The Pacers are trading their 2026 pick this year, the one that they traded back for right before Halliburton tore the Achilles and all this. They're trading that pick, their pick this year. But it's protected 1 through 4 and 10 through 30. So the Clippers only get it if this pick lands 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. If it's any other number in the first round, the Pacers keep it. What? That's crazy. That's crazy. And if the Clippers if the Clippers don't get it, if it's not 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then it converts into a 2031 unprotected first. And the Pacers are already sending an unprotected 2029 to the Clippers. So this could end up being an awesome trade for the Clippers, where they end up getting like a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th pick in a really good draft. Or it can end up, being really good for whoever's making decisions for the Clippers at the end of the decade and the beginning of the next one. But so the protections are fascinating. I think it's really interesting how you do this. But look, the Clippers part of this, take a flyer on Benedict Mathurin. Okay, now I got Mathurin and Darius Garland. That's interesting to me. I don't know that they fit great, but they're young. I can re-sign Mathurin this summer if I like what I see over the next couple months. Yeah, I don't mind that. I've just traded James Harden and Zubac, and I've pretty much gotten a bunch of what I think the next version of my team is going to be, or at least the means to acquire players for the next version of my team. So I like that. But the Pacers part of this is the big part of this, right? You get Zubac, and that's the guy that everybody wanted. Pacers, the Celtics, you had a bunch of teams interested in Zubac. I love Zubac. I thought he was one of the best 5 centers in the league last year. I thought he was a no-brainer all-star last year. I think I might have had him. I mean, he was on the bubble of one of my all-NBA teams. And he's been really good. Not as good this year, but he's a good player. And for Tyrese Halliburton, I find this really interesting. And one of the things I always go back to and I think about with Halliburton is when he first got traded to Indiana, there was a story done, and I forget who wrote it, and I'm sorry. I wish I could remember. Maybe I'll find it. But somebody wrote a story about his burgeoning at that time chemistry with Miles Turner. And in that piece, Halliburton has a quote talking about, and I'm paraphrasing here, but talking about how his entire life he grew up with rim rolling type of centers, playing with rim rolling centers. And even in Sacramento, rim rolling centers. Never really played with a floor spacing 5. And actually didn't think he would like it. And then he got paired up with Turner and he said, I actually like this. And that quote always just stuck in the back of my brain. And I started thinking about it more after they let Miles Turner walk this past summer. Because a lot of people were, oh, well, you need to replace Miles Turner. They go get Jay Huff. A lot of people are trying to figure out how can they get another spacing 5 like Turner. And I was always thinking, what if they go the other way and give Halliburton a rim roller again? Now, Zubac isn't a rim roller in the way that like a classic rim roller like DeAndre Jordan is, right? But he gets to the rim. He's awesome in pick and roll. We saw the chemistry that he developed with James Harden. He's got great touch around the basket. He's big. He's physical. Great screen setter. I am very, very interested and excited to watch Halliburton play with Zubac in that way. But really the big thing here for the Pacers is the defensive part of this, right? I mean, this is a whole new backbone to you defensively. And with Zubac and Pascal Siakam, I really like that as a defensive front court. The Pacers allowed the 4th most shots within 6 feet of the basket this season. Now, the difference between Miles Turner and Zubac, I think defensively is big. It's even bigger between the group that the Pacers are running out there this year at center and Zubac. So the fact that they allow so many shots at the basket isn't surprising. But they also had no answer for it, right? Like the gap year part of this is one thing, but Halliburton's coming back. Halliburton's not helping with your rim protection. They needed to get a center. Zubac is the best guy that they could have gotten. So yeah, like I said, the 4th most shots in the league within 6 feet of the basket. Zubac holds opponents to 11.4 percentage points less than their average within 6 feet of the basket. That's Victor Wembanyama, Rudy Gobert type numbers. Not exaggerating. He's awesome as a rim protector. Mainly a drop defender, can come up to the level of the screen a little bit. We'll see how Rick Carlisle plays him. My guess, a lot of different ways. Rick Carlisle is very creative on both ends of the court. This to me is a home run, and it might be the most interesting trade to me, even outside the Harden. Harden's pretty interesting. But the tangible impact of this, not this season, but next season, you get Halliburton back. You've got Zubac. You've got Siakam. You didn't move any of your core pieces, right, to get them. You didn't have to move Nembhard. You didn't have to move Nesmith. All it cost you was Mathurin and some of these picks. And if you keep this 2026 pick, if it stays in the top 4 specifically, and you're able to get one of these great players in this draft alongside Halliburton and Zubac, you're never going to miss these first-round picks that do end up conveying. And you've got your team for years. For years. Something interesting is brewing in Indiana. A team that, as good as that team was that went to 7 games against the Thunder last year in the finals, it kind of feels like the team that they're building is going to be even better than that. Let's hit a couple more of these trades. The Chicago Bulls. I'm not gonna bore you with all the deals that they made. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you what their depth chart is right now. Okay. At point guard, Josh Giddey, Trey Jones, Rob Dillingham. At shooting guard, Anthony Simons, Colin Sexton, Jaden Ivey. At small forward, they have Montes Bazelis and Isaac Okoro. At power forward, or the big man rotation, Jalen Smith, Patrick Williams, Nick Richards, Gershon Yabusele. Zach Collins is injured. Noah Senge is injured. They acquired Leonard Miller on the wing. What a weird team, man. That's 6 guards who all need the ball. A bunch of tweener type of wings. And a bunch of power forwards who could play center. Between guys like Jalen Smith and Gershon Yabusele and Patrick Williams. It's just that's a weird team. And you look at what the depth chart is now versus before when it was Giddey, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu. What did they accomplish here? This is the ultimate just moving around deck chairs kind of thing. What did you accomplish here? They got 4 second-round picks was the net that they got out of this. And the fact that they didn't get a first for Ayo Dosunmu is malpractice. We'll see what happens with the Bulls. There's something to be said about rearranging the deck chairs. You take a swing on a guy like Rob Dillingham and Jaden Ivey. I like those guys. They clearly have higher ceilings than the guys that were there. We'll see what happens, right? Giddey's injured, so those guys will play a bunch. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about OKC. They get Jared McCain. Philadelphia gets a 2026 Rockets first-round pick from the Thunder and 3 second-round picks. I love this for the Thunder at first, right? McCain, 38% type of three-point shooter. You look at a lot of these Thunder losses, and a lot of it comes down to three-point shooting, and it just feels like, hey, if we're hurt and Isaiah Joe doesn't make every three he takes, we're going to lose this game. And that was a weird, precarious place for the Thunder to be in. So I like the McCain addition in terms of let's get insurance here. Let's get some more shooting in the door. And then the more I thought about this, the more I didn't like it for the Thunder. And the more I loved it for Philadelphia. McCain doesn't play a lot. He's dealing with knee and thumb injuries with no real light at the end of the tunnel on that. And OKC takes a risk by parting with 4 draft assets. Now, you could tell me they have a bunch of first-round picks. They have a bunch of second-round picks. They got to move these. You got to spend this. And yeah, there's definitely truth in that, and that's probably ultimately what Sam Presti was figuring is, hey, if this doesn't work, who cares? There's so many picks. It doesn't matter. It's worth the risk. And maybe he ends up being right. But I don't love that as a general concept of might as well. I don't love that as a reasoning behind making a trade. Not to say that's the only reason that the Thunder did this. But the other concern I have, and maybe the biggest one here, is does McCain play at all for this Thunder team if they're not injured? Like, who is he playing over? Are you even playing him over Isaiah Joe at this point? Probably not. Who's he playing? He's not playing over Aaron Wiggins. He's not playing over any of the other. He's not playing over Kaysen Wallace, Alex Cruz. He's not playing over any of those guys. Like, where are the minutes going to come from him? Is it the Oklahoma City Blue? Is this a G League thing? So we'll see. Maybe this is more a play for next year. I don't know. I usually always I prefer to side on Sam Presti's side because this guy has been right over and over and over again. But with these midseason trades, he actually does not have the greatest track record. He's even admitted the Gordon Hayward thing from a couple years ago was a mistake. So we'll see. I don't love it as much as I liked it before, but it could work out for the Thunder. Let's talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. Utah gets Jaren Jackson Jr., John Conchar, Vince Williams. Jock Landale then gets rerouted to Atlanta. Memphis gets Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, George Niang, and 3 first-round picks. Those first-round picks are a Lakers 2027 pick, the most favorable of a Utah, Cleveland, Minnesota pick in 2027, and a Phoenix 2031 pick. According to the reporting around this, the crown jewel of this trade was that Phoenix 2031 pick. All right, I guess. Still seems like you didn't get this awesome pick for Jaren Jackson Jr. And if I have to wait for my crown jewel 5-6 years from now, I don't love that if I'm Memphis. But you move on from Jaren Jackson Jr., you get the pick assets, right? You get the volume. You get Walter Clayton Jr., who's basically like a first-round pick. I like him. I think I'll be interested to see him get some more touches in Memphis. Taylor Hendricks, take a flyer on him. It hasn't really worked out in Utah. Maybe you can make it work there. Okay. I love this for the Jazz. And I said on the show last week, we did a bunch of fake trades. I had Dan Favali of Bleacher Report. And I saved my biggest, most dramatic fake trade for the end. And I had Zion Williamson getting traded to the Utah Jazz. And it's dramatic, and Zion, obviously, a big name. But my overall point was Lauri Markkanen and Keontae George are really good, and they're really good now. Like, why are we doing this tanking thing? End it. Go get a guy who fits with them. Jaren Jackson Jr. fits with those guys. I love this fit. I'm assuming they're going to re-sign Walker Kessler. Maybe I shouldn't. It's going to be restricted free agency, and you're already hearing stuff about how it's going to be a touch and go, potentially messy restricted free agency, but they're going to want him back. But if they don't bring him back, it's not the end of the world. Obviously, it makes it a lot easier and better if they do bring him back, because now you're looking at a potential starting 5 next year of Walker Kessler at center, Jaren Jackson Jr., Lauri Markkanen going back to the 3, Ace Bailey at the 2, and Keontae George at the 1. And Utah is going to finish this tank job for the rest of the year, right? Maybe they end up with another big pick. Like, do they end up with a Debanza or a Peterson or something like that? Maybe, right? And then you figure that out. That's a good problem to have. But even what this team is now going into next year, I really like this lineup. They have an identity. They're going to be big. They're going to, there's a lot of skill there, right? If you're going to play Markkanen at the 3, if you're going to play Kessler at the 5, if you're going to play Jackson at the 4, you need a lot of floor spacing. Jackson can space the floor. Markkanen can space the floor. Kessler is going to clean up all the rebounding that those guys don't. If you can get a little bit extra rebounding from guys like Ace Bailey, things like that, that's even more helpful. I love this for the Jazz. And I love the fact that they've ended the tank because it was getting borderline insulting, right? Like, I didn't think that the Jazz could survive from a karma standpoint another year of tanking. Like, to me, this was it. So I'm really glad they made the move now. They had and the other part of this is that they had the cap space this summer. And the name that was most commonly associated with the Jazz was Austin Reeves. And everybody around the league thought they were going to throw the max deal or something close to it at Austin Reeves. And so the opportunity cost of trading for Jaren Jackson Jr., now you're not going to have that space to go get Austin Reeves. Everything changed with Keontae George becoming the player he is now. Everything changed. And for the record, he would be my most improved player of the year winner right now. He is a tremendously, dramatically different player than he was last year. He's finishing at the rim at a higher rate. He's shooting threes at a higher rate. He's a better passer than he's ever been. He is leveled up in a major way where it's not out of the realm of possibility that he ends up being better than Austin Reeves. I'm not getting in the way of that. And I think because of his development, that's why you saw the Jazz make, in part, this decision is, hey, we got our guard of the future. We don't really need Austin Reeves here. Let's go get Jaren Jackson Jr., who's under contract. We don't have to worry about Austin Reeves deciding to go back to the Lakers. We don't have to compete with anybody. Let's just go get our guy, pre-agency style. Let's go do it. I love this move for the Jazz. I love it. I know that the Jaren Jackson Jr. is far from a perfect player. He's become one of the more polarizing players in the league. He doesn't rebound, doesn't necessarily show up in the big games. I don't care. I think it's a great fit. I think he adds way more than he takes away. And the Jazz are really going for it, and they have a real identity now. And I'm really interested to see what Will Hardy can do with this lineup. Minnesota also had one of my favorite trades of the deadline. They get Ayo Dosunmu and Julian Phillips. Chicago gets Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and 4 second-round draft picks. Already talked about the Chicago part about this. I love this for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think Mike Shearer came on the show and maybe pitched Dosunmu to Minnesota. And I think maybe it was Dan. I can't remember who pitched it. Whoever pitched it, I fell in love immediately. It was perfect. Ayo Dosunmu, one of my favorite players in the league for a couple of years now. Everybody was figuring out how good this guy was. How Chicago didn't get a first-round pick in return from his beyond me. They chose Rob Dillingham instead. Maybe it works out, whatever. But the Timberwolves get a guy. And they moved Mike Conley in that first trade to clear up the space to do this. And they're going to have to re-sign Dosunmu this summer. And I've already seen it out there now that, so wait, you let Nickeil Alexander-Walker go, and then you have to trade the guy who you traded up to get in Rob Dillingham to go get a guy who essentially just replaces Nickeil Alexander-Walker and who you're going to probably have to pay Nickeil Alexander-Walker type money to in Ayo Dosunmu. And you look at the net of all of that and you say, that's bad business because you could have just re-signed Nickeil Alexander-Walker, keep Rob Dillingham, and kind of see that development through. And the Monday morning quarterbacking part of this is absolutely right. I mean, obviously that's correct. If the Timberwolves could redo it, maybe they would. But I'm not going to fault them for that. I'm not, right? Like there's something to be said about taking the calculated risk. And they took the risk of, hey, we're going to let Walker go. We're going to hope that Dillingham and Terrence Shannon and Jalen Clark, we're going to hope that these guys develop at a rate where we're going to be able to replace them. We're going to be able to replace Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And it didn't happen. Okay, you tried it. It didn't work out. You made up for it within a couple of months by getting Dosunmu. I'm okay with teams taking risks. I'm okay with the process behind it. Front offices aren't always going to be right. I was okay with the process of moving up to get Rob Dillingham, and it clearly didn't work out. Bones Highland was playing over him this year. But I was okay with the process. We can't judge everything on results because you're not always going to be right. I was okay with this for Minnesota. You want to slam him, go ahead and slam him. It feels very Monday morning quarterbacky to me. I think it was still the right decision at the end of the day. And the fact that they made up for it with a player like Ayo Dosunmu, that's huge. The Lakers get Luke Kennard. Atlanta gets Gabe Vincent in a 2032 second-round pick. Sounds like Gabe Vincent might get bought out here. The obvious thing is Kennard shooting is going to help the Lakers. He's shooting like 49-point-something% on 50% on threes. Kennard is an awesome three-point shooter. Also, not just not only a knockdown three-point shooter, can do a little bit of playmaking too. Like he can handle it a little bit. More than Gabe Vincent can, frankly. So I like this is an upgrade, right? This is going to help. My problem with the Lakers is defense is still a major issue. And Gabe Vincent was sort of pretending to be a point of attack defender this year for the Lakers. Kennard can't even pretend. Like we're not even cosplaying as point of attack defenders with Luke Kennard. And my question is, at what point does JJ Redick lose patience with Kennard because of his defense? That's going to be the issue. So Kennard can help when he's on the floor. How long is he actually going to be on the floor when JJ Redick starts to lose patience with him defensively? Orlando gets Tyus Jones for cash, basically. Or I'm sorry, Orlando trades Tyus Jones to Charlotte for cash. Sounds like Tyus Jones could get bought out here. We'll see. I don't know. Ever since Tyus Jones took the minimum to play for Phoenix, it's never been the same for him. Whatever. Last trade that I'm going to talk about here. Golden State gets Kristaps Porzingis. Atlanta gets Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield. The Warriors also made another trade. They traded Trace Jackson Davis to Toronto for a 2026 Lakers second round pick. Okay, whatever. So the Warriors' answer to all of this was to get older. Is there a bigger loser at the deadline than the Warriors? Like, in the weeks ahead of the deadline, Jimmy Butler goes down with a season-ending ACL injury that's going to keep him out into next season. They had to break the news to Draymond Green that, oh, yeah, we are willing to trade you. Hope that doesn't come back to bite us. And they finally trade Kuminga, but they do it for a guy who barely plays, who's old, who's going to need to be re-signed to recoup any kind of value out of him in Kristaps Porzingis. Now, on the court, great fit. Kristaps Porzingis, Draymond Green, great fit on the court. So was Al Horford. It hasn't worked out. Porzingis and Al Horford reunited in Golden State, I think, is kind of funny too. It could work out. There's going to be games where it looks amazing. Obviously, there's going to be games where this looks amazing. But man, this Warriors team is really old. And they traded their best young player in Kuminga, or their maybe most promising young player in Kuminga, to get even older. The Warriors' answer to all of this, to getting Steph Curry help, was to get older? Really? Yikes. Hawks side of this, they take a chance on Jonathan Kuminga. I'm not the biggest Jonathan Kuminga fan. That's been well established here. But I like this for Atlanta. This is a Hawks team that's accumulating a ton of talent, a lot of interesting wings. Would it be crazy to see Jonathan Kuminga develop into a better player than Zachary Riza-Shea? I don't think that would be crazy. They get an option there. So I like it. I like it for the Hawks. That's going to do it for me here. It wasn't every trade, but to me, it was the most interesting trades. It was the ones I wanted to talk about. We're going to be back next week with some more trade deadline fallout, but this has been it for Real GM Radio. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk soon.